Hey, Suzanne, how are you?
Well, I guess he's not listening to me.
Glad you could make it.
There we go.
It's you and me so far. Can you hear me?
Oh, I gotta do this.
Hey, Roadkill, a new person. Hey, welcome. How'd you find us? We're going to be talking about a subject tonight that was requested actually during our last live broadcast. I've been sitting here making jewelry all day, so I may just continue to work on this as we talk. And I'm going to give everyone a little bit of time because I'm just not getting the notification that I'm live. Give everyone a chance to pop in. So what have you been doing, Suzanne? How was your the 2 weeks since I've seen you? What you been up to? Did you get any rain? David Gray, hey, thanks for popping in. Missed you last time, Dave. We talked about all sorts of stuff. So we got talking last time, David, about different things, and people said next time could you talk about some of your stories from when I was, doing reporting. So what I've done is I've chosen one of the more, hey, God's Desire. Thanks for stopping by. Anyway, so I was actually hunted by or stalked by a Siberian tiger. And so I'll start that story in just a second. Give you a little bit of background. I've been writing since third grade. I had my first story published in, you all familiar with the children's magazine called Highlights? You usually see those in doctors' offices. I think they still publish Highlights. And it was just a short story. Then, as a sophomore in college, I started writing for the school's newspaper and ended up being the editor to it. And that started me on a journey as far as religious awakening. And that's another story I'll tell another night. And then yet another story is how I officially went to school and was professionally trained as a journalist, which at that time, at least in print journalism, you had to have a degree from a known communications college for newspapers to be interested in you. Now, there are different forms of journalism. There's print journalism, or the younger people today call those of us who are in print dead tree journalists, because our work is published on paper. And that's newspapers and magazines. Then there's broadcast journalism, which is anything that goes out over the airwaves. It's radio, TV news. Now there's social media, YouTube news organizations. I guess that could fall under broadcast. But when I started this journey, you had print journalists and broadcast journalists. And through my career, I've done all the forms of journalism, except for podcasts. That's all since I retired. So I was actually the news director at a news talk radio station out of Gainesville, Florida, which started out being known as Sky King 97.3 FM. And if you're familiar with the old TV show called Sky King, we got sued over using Sky King, even though that show wasn't around anymore. So they shortened it to The Sky 97.3 FM. And I kind of ran the newscast. Now, one of the things I told my young reporters when I would hire them and start training them is one of the things you want to do to ensure success covering the news is get to know your local law enforcement. And you do this by scheduling what's called a ride along, where they put you in a squad car with an officer or deputy, whatever the agency may be that you're spending time with, and you ride around. And that does several things for you. That develops a rapport. There's a lot of hostility between law enforcement and journalists, as you've seen lately, with the journalists being arrested for doing their job covering the protests that are ongoing in the country. And a lot of distrust between the two. But I would coach my young writers to get over it, get over themselves, get to know their law enforcement. When you're doing a ride along, you get to see parts of town you may not otherwise see. You get to see behaviors you may not otherwise see that policemen have to put up with. Which is another story I can tell you about, because I cut my teeth really in journalism training and as a student journalist during the University of Florida student murders. If you're old enough to remember those, the 5 college students that were slaughtered. But I digress. So you get to know your police agencies, and policemen, law enforcement knows all the dirt. They know what's going on, who's doing who, which politicians are really corrupt. And if they like you and you treat them right, you get phone calls. When things are happening that the other reporters may not hear on the radio or whatever, they'll call you from the scene of something and say, "Psst, come get this before the rest of the press is alerted." And that's exactly what happened for the tiger story that I'm about to tell. So you've got the background now. One of the things that Charlie did not like about my career was I had to sleep with a pager on my pillow. And that thing could go off at any time. It's kind of like the medical profession. You're always on call, even when you think you're done for the day and you go home. You're always on call. And when you're the director of a newsroom, like I was, you've got to be the one to assign a reporter if you have any available for whatever's going on. So when I get to bed at night, I put that beeper on my pillow, try to sleep. And one morning, I was living in North Florida in Alachua County. Alachua County is named after the town of Alachua, which is kind of rural. Wouldn't you say they're kind of a rural, or they were a little rural enclave, Charlie?
Yeah.
West of the University of Florida, and we are living in Archer, which is like the next town to it. And so the sun hadn't quite peeked up over the horizon yet, but the sky was kind of that pinkish yellow hue that it is right before you start seeing the sun. And my beeper went off. And it was Sergeant Jim from the Alachua County Sheriff's Department. And he goes, "Hey, Lisa, what are you doing?" I said, "Sleeping." "What are you doing, Jim?" And he says, "Well, I'm heading out to Alachua. How close are you to Alachua?" And I told him probably about 5 minutes. And he says, "Well, you may want to get over to," and he gave me the address of a facility called Cat Dancers. And the Cat Dancer folks traveled all over the United States with large cats doing animal shows. It wasn't a circus type thing. It was more of an educational program that they did, educating people on the plight of large cats in the wild. And the cats were trained to do things with people around them. So they it was kind of like a circus act, but not, if you'd understand what I'm trying to say. Hey, Nikki, welcome. So he says one of their tigers just attacked their handler and it's got loose. If you meet me out there, I'll give you 20 minutes before the rest of the press is alerted. Pretty good deal, huh? So I set out for Alachua. Now, a lot of the roads in this part of Florida are dirt roads. They're not paved, and they're cut down through the soil so that the banks on either side of the road are above the car's roof. And I drove a Volkswagen Beetle that was painted up blue with clouds all over it. Get it? Sky 97.3 FM. A Beetle looks like clouds, right? So off I go. And as I'm driving down this dirt lane with the banks up above me and then the oak trees with Spanish moss hanging. So if you can picture the Spanish moss hanging in front of you and you're kind of driving through a tunnel with the big thick oak trees and the Spanish moss at daybreak, so it's pretty dark. My headlights are on and I'm going slow. And there's not another human in sight that I could see. And finally I came up on the driveway. It was on my left and turned in. There was Jim sitting there in his squad car in front of a aluminum panel gate. And down the hill about 200 feet was a single wide trailer surrounded by 10-foot high walls of chain link fence with roofs over them. Those were kennels. And I got there about the time the trauma alert helicopter landed. And if you look down the driveway, there were trees lining one side, then it was open where the trailer was and the kennels and a barn-like structure. And the trauma alert landed on just the other side of the trees because there was like a pasture there. So, I get out of the car and I said, "Hey, Jim, what's going on?" And he gave me an interview on how this Siberian tiger was being led from its night enclosure to its day kennel so it could run, when it jumped up and grabbed its handler by the throat, ripped the guy's throat out. And as he's talking, his shoulder walkie-talkie kept squeaking, squelching. And so I'm interviewing him, right? Hey, Eleanor, welcome. And about that time, we heard the helicopter rev up and start to lift the handler. And about that time, we heard a woman screaming, just this primal, gut-wrenching from her deep inside, just screaming, no, no, no. And I had my microphone out and I was getting the sound because, you gotta think this way when you're a journalist. Oh, that's great sound for the news broadcast, right? And I said to Jim, do we know why she's screaming? And he says, yeah, she just learned that the handler had died. He bled out. So I asked him, so are you all going to shoot the animal? Because Fish and Game, Department of Fish and Game were there. And here's my cat. So we call them DNR, Department of Natural Resources. They were there. And so he got on his little radio and he called down and says, are we gonna put this cat down, or what are we gonna do when we find him? And they said, well, we've got to find him first. He's like off the compound. He's off the property. Cat's wreaking havoc over here. And then they got back to us and they said the owner, who was a man and a woman that ran the facility, says no, they're not going to shoot the animal because they think that it was startled because they had some guys on the property in the last few days building facilities for them and making a lot of noise, and the animals don't like change, so they thought the animal was upset and attacked the handler, who had actually hand raised this tiger from a kitten, from like a 6-week old kitten, and the tiger was now a couple of years old, so he was full grown. So they were going to elect, if they could catch him, not to euthanize. So he's getting the story for me, and on his shoulder radio, and it was squelching and whatever. And my back was toward the bank behind me, which was, keep in mind now, it's above my head, probably 2 feet higher than the roof of the car. And we've got someone here that's interjecting himself into our story. He's a tiger. Come here, tiger. Or not. And the radio would squelch. And I started to I felt it more than I heard it. This deep rumbling. Ah. Radio would squelch. Ah. I turned on my mic. Squelch. Ah. And I said to Jim, we may want to get in a car. And my little VW Bug is not as strong as your squad car. And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, the tiger is watching us, and he's close enough for me to feel the growl. Oh, I said, And Jim goes like, and I said, turn your radio off just for a minute. I said, move slow. So he reached up and he turned off the volume. Oh, you could feel the growling. And then we heard from right there, right above our heads. So we quickly got into his squad car and we looked up and we could see the silhouette of this tiger poised. And you know how they'll position themselves before they leap, poised to jump down on us. About that time, a cloud of dust starts appearing along the road leading up to the cat dancing facility. It was the press corps. Jim had alerted them. And here they came. And thank God for my colleagues coming up that road a lot faster than they should be driving on a dirt road, racing this cloud of dust that by now the sun had risen. It was probably not fully up, but enough so you could see it was daylight. But here they come, and they kind of swing into the driveway and almost ran over us. But it was enough commotion to make that tiger turn and run off. So that's how close I came. And that tiger was coiled and ready to leap onto the patrol car that we were sitting in. And, you know, they weigh 400 pounds. Forrest, how much does Siberian tiger weigh? I'll look it up. Between 200, well, no, that can't be right. 933 pounds? Males can weigh up to 933 pounds. So this was a fully grown male. That animal would have come through that windshield. We would have been dinner had my colleagues not shown up and scared it off. So they came out and they did what the press do. There was kind of like a circus trying to interview Jim, and he winked at me. And I hung around. You always hang around with your microphone going to see if someone asks something that you didn't think of. And things settled down, and the woman, you could still hear her screaming and crying. They were going to let us interview them, but when she found out the young man, who was like a son to them, that he had died, that they wouldn't come and talk to us. So we got in the car and we left. Now they did catch the tiger and they put him back in his kennel. And about 3 months later, I think it was 3 months, the woman was leading the cat from his night enclosure to his day run. And it jumped up, grabbed her by the throat, shook her like a rag doll, tore her throat out, dismembered her. And her husband came out of the house with his .30-aught and put a bullet in that cat's brain. So he lost his wife, he lost a cat, very expensive cat, and he lost a young man who had been like a son to them. It was their main trainer for their cats. And folks, that is my story on being stalked by a Siberian tiger. Didn't end well for the tiger, but not immediately. He killed again and was killed. So I'm going to go look at the chat and see what y'all been saying. Let's see. Cat power. Oh, Eleanor. Thank you, Nikki, for streaming me. And let's see. Okay. Thank you very much, Nikki, and thank you, Eleanor, for popping in. Oh gosh, was that to the tiger getting stalked? Stalking me? Cat power. Yeah, this cat had a lot of power. Yeah, I feel for the people who ran the cat dancing operation. It had to have been a traumatic thing to go through, but personally, I don't really approve of wild animals being kept as pets or being on display like that with people. A wild animal is a wild animal, and they belong in the wild. I don't like zoos. I am an empath, and if those of you know what an empath is, which is I feel what you feel when we're talking. I feel what's going on around me. I'm very, very in tune with moods and swings in nature. It made me a good reporter. It made me a good interviewer. For some reason, when I meet people, I know things immediately about them that they haven't told me, and I kind of form my questions around those feelings. And I've had a lot of success in my career asking questions that caught them off guard. And when you catch someone off guard with a question, unless they're a very, very skilled liar, and a lot of people are skilled liars, they will answer honestly. Their first reaction is going to be the honest one. So when I go to a zoo, all I feel is pain, fear, anger coming from the animals, boredom. And that's my position on zoos. So I don't want to say these people deserve this, but it was an accident waiting to happen as far as I'm concerned. You must have heard a lot of interesting stories as a reporter. Eleanor, I lived those stories. I lived those stories. And yeah, I've got a bunch of stories. So if you like this one, I'll do another one another night. Charlie, would you want to tell everybody why you asked me to stop my journalism when we came to Georgia?
Don't like you getting shot at.
Did you hear what he said? Come say it so they can hear you.
I don't like her getting shot at.
He doesn't like me getting shot at. Yeah. Did you like me getting beaten up?
No.
Oh, it was fun. So Nikki says, leave the wild animals out in the wild. I agree, except for the ones that we rescue because people have damaged them. Ready to pounce? Yes, it was. Here's food for thought, Eleanor. It isn't right to limit the space for the animals. Isn't that what we're doing with all the habitat destruction and all the build, putting in these cookie cutter housing neighborhoods? We are allocating very small spaces to animals that need more space, and interaction between humans and animals, especially the alpha predators, is going to increase. And what happens when we interact with alpha predators and they do what they're supposed to do? They defend their territory or defend their young. What do? We go in and kill them for being who they are. But don't get me on that soapbox, okay? Bio Sugar, welcome. Maritza's Yarn and Crafts, welcome to you too. I'm being stalked by a tiger now. What are you doing? What you...
Maurice. Is he talking too loud, Maurice?
Yeah, I don't know when you said that, Suzanne. No choice at that point. How sad. Was that for the second killing?
Yeah.
Sad and scary, yeah. But I tell you, I got goosebumps telling you about that every time I think about how I felt the rumbling of those growls. I mean, I literally felt it. And Jim was tuned into his radio, so every time it went off, he didn't notice, which is interesting to me, because in law enforcement, you need to be tuned into what's going on around you. And he didn't notice the growling until I told him it was happening. And right when he jerked his head up, we heard the hiss. Might have been because he looked up at it. And he's like, get in the car. And I said, move slow. Don't run. If you move too fast, that animal's going to take that as an invitation. David says, I worked on a horse farm when I was young, and the owner had a bear and a tiger, and I loved the tiger and used to go in her cage often. I'm glad you survived it, David.
Really?
Glad you survived it. Oh, skilled liars. Yes. Nikki, people ask me, our job is to debunk what people are telling us. And in the days of Trump, everything comes out of his mouth is easily debunked, but we won't go there. But people will ask me, how do you know when someone's lying to you? And what do I say? Their lips are moving.
They look to the upper left.
Charlie, darn right. I'd come home all bloodied and Charlie go, what now? But the times I was really hurt, he was living overseas, so he didn't see it. I guess it's a good thing. Well, I'm sorry that things got to that point. Your grandfather was a reporter. Who did he work for, Eleanor? Was he a dead tree journalist like me, or was he on the air? Did he have a niche? Yeah, there's a difference between being a journalist and a reporter. Reporters kind of like the ground level where you start, going to the women's club and writing about their affairs, or when you start getting into analysis and covering issues, that's more journalism. I mean, the reporting is journalism too, but it's when you start covering the thornier issues that you actually have to research and fact check, or you used to have to research and fact check. I don't see a lot of that going on today, but don't get me started on that either. So you start out at the reporting level, and then you become a journalist, and then editing and everything else that goes along with that as you work copy editing, as you work your way up the line. At one time, I had 72 people under me, and I oversaw the publication layout and content of 28 different newspapers that were weekly inserts in the South Florida Sun Sentinel, actually. Had some recent habitat destruction in my neighborhood. It made me both sad and angry. Oh, I'm livid. We bought this property because it was in the county, unincorporated, and surrounded by farmland. There was like 1-2 neighborhoods between us and town, and the rest was farmland. And now they've taken down 2/3 of the trees, and they're putting in high density houses. $400,000 for this 2-story house that was slapped up in just a couple of weeks. And I think a good wind is going to come along and blow those things down. But when I see the habitat destruction that went into putting those things up, I'm livid. I'm livid. Where are the animals going to go? And then the people, there's a app on their phone is called Nextdoor. And I'm a member of it because it's supposed to be, if there's crime, if if your animal's lost, whatever, something important that you need to know about, the neighbors talk and warn each other. And I see so many people that are moving into the area who they see a bug or they see a snake or a frog in their window and they're freaking out. Well, my position is if you're afraid of wildlife, stay in the city.
Stay in the city.
Stay in the city. And they, they'll kill a snake and take a picture of it. Was this snake dangerous?
Not anymore.
Well, y'all know about me and snakes, and I tend to cut them new ones. So I'm not real popular with a lot of people. Okay. Lisa, you were a brave girlie. I would have stayed home in bed. Oh, no, Nikki, we journalists are a strange crowd. Journalists and cops, you hear something going down, you run toward it instead of away from it. Both journalism and law enforcement are great for people with ADHD or attention deficit disorder because your day, two days are never alike. You've got something happening all the time and you bounce from one topic to another and cover it. It's perfect for short attention spans. And that was me. Strong personality, I know, but I don't know about the other strengths. I cry like a baby. I remember in the Gainesville Sun, South Florida, the Gainesville Sun was owned by the New York Times. That was my first paper. I forget what was going on, but it was something traumatic. And the senior reporter came back from reporting on it, sat down, wrote her story, and then went over to another colleague in her department, got on her knees, and started crying and shaking and vomiting. But she held it in, and she had a stiff upper lip until she got her job done, and then she fell apart. And that's basically how it rolls. You keep it together while the incident is going on and your job is done, and then the emotions come. And I remember Cindy doing that, and it has stayed with me, that whatever she had covered had disturbed her to that level. Hey, LP. Thank you for coming by. Thank you, Nikki. And yes, this is a live that you probably have to go back and listen to the story to figure out what it is we're talking about. He worked for the Milwaukee Journal. Do you know what types of things he reported on, Eleanor? Did you pay attention? Yes, I know next door. It's helpful to know where there is crime. And David's into butterflies. You're going to scream, David. Everyone's going to hear you scream when I tell you this. I have not seen, I think I saw one monarch fly by us outside. But on the Nextdoor app I just mentioned, some lady killed 3 or 4 monarch butterfly larvae or caterpillars, posted it and said, "What kind of worms are these?" Oh my God. I called her names and got a warning from Nextdoor. Hey, you idiot. Those are monarch butterfly larvae. They're endangered species. City people need to stay in the city. Saw a frog on a window tonight. Tree frog, love them. Love them. Oh, I am so jealous. Suzanne has monarch caterpillars. Yeah, we run towards danger. It's like, I remember in the New York Times, I left newspapers for a short time and worked for the University of Florida as a senior information specialist, which was kind of interesting. They hired me at the top of the food chain to run the PR for the College of Engineering. So I was over an engineering magazine, bulletins, research papers. It was kind of an important job, meeting regularly with the university president and deans and people who think they're really important. And my former editors kept calling me saying, when are you coming back to newspapers? When are you coming back? You don't need to be in a PR job. It was good money. Come back to newspapers. And finally, the New York Times itself out of New York called me and said, everyone's recommending you to come in and help us with our new purchases. They were purchasing small town newspapers all over the country and bringing them up to New York Times standards. And that's what they wanted me to do, is to go in to these small town newspapers and teach them how to cover diversity, which is one way of saying covering non-white things, and how to file a story on the wire so the rest of the New York Times papers can pull their stories. And they hired me to go into Lake City, which is a town 45 minutes above Gainesville, to teach them diversity reporting and filing a story. And that's when I was beaten up and my life threatened. And that's another story if you want to hear it, what happened to Lisa in Lake City, Florida. And I forgot the point of me bringing that all up. Oh, running towards danger. Yes, we were sitting in an editorial meeting, and Tommy, the editor, the executive editor, looked at all the reporters all sitting around the table, and we had really, really bad weather coming in. We're under a tornado watch. And he says, looking out this window, how many of you are excited about what's coming and what might be? And when you hear those high winds start, how many of you want to run out and look? And I'm the only one that raised my hand. I'll do it. True story. See. Okay, Nikki doesn't like frogs. I love frogs. We talked about that during your last live broadcast, Nikki, didn't we? Yes. Yeah, I'll go check mine too. Maybe there's some eggs out there. What are you pulling your hair out for, David? People killing their larvae? He reported mainly on politics. He died when I was young at the age 25. I'm sorry about you losing your dad, Eleanor. I lost mine when I was 5. Politics is a tough beat. It's stressful. Do you feel like the stress from his job had anything to do with his death? Just out of curiosity. Hold up, a city person. I'm a nature lover. I saw a monarch calendar by the lake. Good. Instead of screaming. Okay. I'll definitely go back for the beginning. I want to hear the story. LP's only seen 2 monarchs all summer. Yeah, that's a good point, Suzanne, but they've got to be 2 of the opposite, 1 each of the opposite sex. That sounds scary. Of course, I'm so far behind the chat, I don't know what's making Nikki laugh now. I found a more detailed thing about my grandfather, Jack Cole. He was Washington bureau chief for the Milwaukee Journal from 1970 to 1989 and press secretary for Representative David Obey, 1997. Yeah, a lot of us get recruited into managing political politicians. When I was in Gainesville and on my hiatus from the newspaper, I actually managed the re-election campaign for Cynthia Chestnut, who was running for re-election as mayor, and organized phone banks and door-to-door knocks and events for her to speak at. And I got her, me and my team, we got her reelected. And heading into the election, she was the underdog. So that was good. Good experience. Yeah, Caterpillar Killer. Sadly, Susanna wasn't at the same time. Oh, all right. It was my grandfather. He did have a heart attack, so maybe. Well, look at me. My heart gave out. I think I've said this before on a live that journalism isn't what you do, it's who you become. And you live the profession. Every day, everything I read, every presentation I see, whether it's an influencer or someone in broadcast speaking, I'm always editing. I'm like, that was passive. And one of the reasons I come across so strong in the way I express myself is my training to not say things passively. So if you know anything about writing and you know what passive voice is, it's using words that soften what you're saying. Or we're trained, those of us who are in print journalism, we're trained to take those words out of our vocabulary. And after a few years writing in active voice, you end up being unable to use passive voice. So when I express myself, whether it's typing, trying to be funny at Nikki's live or whatever, I come across so strongly because I'm not using passive voice. So if you all want to know the difference between passive voice and other forms of writing, you can Google it and look what types of words you take out and how you do your sentence structure. And if you're doing any writing, whether it's a letter for a job or to make a proposal, don't use passive voice. Use active voice. And it comes across that you really know what you're talking about, and people will sit up and take you more seriously. Or in my case, think I'm a royal you-know-what because I do express myself so strongly. It's just what I was trained to do. My cousin followed in his footsteps. She's 27 and a reporter for the Baltimore Sun. That's a good publication, Eleanor. Do you know what she covers? Yeah, I was often known for using passive voice as a young kid. So did your journalist training help you improve that? Okay, I think I already answered that. Yeah, well, it improved me to a fault. And I've been told by other YouTubers that, hey, tone it down, soften up. You're too bold. You rub people the wrong way because you're so bold. Well, how can I do that? It's who I am. More than 30 years as a journalist, erasing passive voice from my my vocabulary. So yeah. So did it improve it? Yes, as a writer. But I can't seem to unlearn it. I'm not sure. Would you all like me if I was a little bit softer? Would you like me better? Okay, now we're going to have to go watch that. So, did you all like my story? Hey, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, okay? Thumbs up helps the algorithm, helps my channel. please share me out because I'm running low on watch hours. I'm never going to get monetized. So that is my goal now, is to get monetized, which means I need watch hours. And I have a video I haven't edited yet, but I'm going to get it up in the next week or two of what happened in the waiting room or the exam room when I went to see the surgeon that did surgeon on my surgery 3 weeks ago. You may be interested in watching that video. Okay, so everyone go over to Eleanor's channel. Eleanor, let's see if I can get your, maybe Suzanne, can you get Eleanor's link to her channel? So LP says, yes, more stories and on reporting. So what story do we want to do next? I have a story on the first person who made the suggestion that I go into journalism seriously. It involves a shotgun in my mouth. I can tell you about that and incorporate a story that led me to changing my religion eventually. So does that sound interesting for the next story, or it'll be next month that I do that? Let's see. My heart surgery, well, I had to stop cardiac rehab because of, and I'll talk about anything. I have no shame. I started having, my butt started getting sore from riding. I rode 3 different exercise type bikes that exercise different parts of your body. And I started feeling some pain down there. And then all of a sudden I developed this huge abscess from the friction. So because I've had rectal abscesses and fistulas, I got my hiney over to a colorectal guy that does my my Pika booties every 5 years. And he says, well, that needs to be lanced, and we need to have a colorectal surgeon look at that to make sure you don't have another fistula. So he sent me to another doctor who was able to see me on the same day, and he lanced this thing on my woohoo between my butt cheek and my equipment. And man, did he dig deep. He sliced and diced. So when you saw the little video we did with me on the couch holding my pillow, pointing to the balloons above my head, that was the day before my birthday. That's what I was trying to recover from. And I saw the guy, was it yesterday, Charlie? Yeah.
Yeah.
And we took a video from inside the exam room. You've got to wait and see what's on that video. But I luckily, thank God, I don't have any fistulas. But I've been told I can't do anything that causes friction until I heal up. And they don't stitch you up when they cut you open down there. It stays open, and it'll be another month at least before I can go back to cardio. So make a long story short, you ask me how I'm doing. My cardio rehab, which I need because my heart function's only at 40%, is on hold to exercise my heart because of my butt. And I don't know what I'm going to do because I can't use a treadmill. I tend to fall off of them, especially with my numb feet with the neuropathy. I don't feel my feet, and I end up doing like, those commercials where you see people fall on the treadmill and roll backwards. That's me. Okay, so. Oh, I have a lot of shocking things that I can share with you all. Okay, I think both those things are interesting. No problems. Now, did everyone go over and check Eleanor out? I think Nikki's okay, but she's live on Mondays. At what time, Nikki? Yeah, Peekabooties. That's what I call colonoscopies. So, if I ever ask you, Nikki, have you had a peekabooty? You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I find very interesting ways to hurt myself all the time. Lisa, you're so hilarious and your stories are captivating. I'm glad you felt that way. Were you here to see our tiger was interrupting my storytelling? That sounds like a pain in the ass. When people say something's a pain in the ass, I'm like, hey, you have no idea what a pain in it is. I do. I'm an expert. Me too, Suzanne. It makes life very difficult. Thank you, Eleanor. Yeah, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? Like I need to be stronger, right? So let everyone catch Nikki. Nikki is so much fun, She'll make you laugh. She makes you feel good. Unlike me, I get you. Everybody gasps with me. But Nikki is a lot of fun. She's a positive influence in my life. If I need cheering up, I pop into her Monday broadcast. I used to really enjoy Hands in the Dirt on Wednesday nights. His name is Stacy, Hands in the Dirt. He does what's called Wind Down Wednesday. Nikki, is he still doing Wind Down Wednesday? It's a lot of fun, a lot of laughter, a lot of feel-good time. And I stepped in something during one of his broadcasts, and now I can't talk during the broadcast, so I don't go where I can't talk. But Nikki's a lot of fun. She hasn't gotten fed up with me enough lately to silence me. So you want to hear those stories the next month? I do one broadcast telling stories, and the next broadcast I'm going to try to start having guests up on the panel. I'm going to ask Nikki. I'm going to twist her arm and say, hey, you have to come be on my panel with me. We look forward to Gail at Gail Southern Living, Adrienne at Indiana Backyard Gardening. She's one of the first people to support me. Gail has been very supportive as well, as Nikki has. And I'll see who else I can get to come up on the screen. Yeah, Nikki, I would come back, but he's still got me gagged. And what point is it to come to a live if you can't participate? I mean, it's I get half my pleasure making people laugh, saying outrageous things. Eleanor would like to come one night. Good. So those of you who want to come, drop me an email. Let me get my email for you, Eleanor. I'm going to have Brampton Gardener one night. So that might get us through the rest of this year. But what's blocked? I'm not blocked, Nikki. I'm muted. The nights I go live are Thursday night, like tonight at 9:00. I do twice a month, first and third Thursday. And I need to get back into doing my storytelling on my other channel, which is I Died NDE, which is Near Death Experiences. That'll be next Thursday is the last one of the month. Yeah. So the last last Thursday of the month, I tell stories on that channel, which is growing very slowly. It only has 54 members. But I get most of my views after the broadcast. And what I usually do is I start a premiere where I'm doing the storytelling, hopefully without kitty cats in my face or whatever to distract me. And then we watch the premiere, and then I go live to discuss the story. And it's gaining popularity. And I know if I was more consistent in my posting, that more people would come. But it's basically, my purpose is to share my near-death experiences. I've had more than one. And to share with you that you don't have to fear death. And when you hear my big story, which I'm going to do for this month, I'm thinking I better get that one out of the way. It's like the punchline. Because of my heart problems, you never know how much longer I'm going to be here. Now, Charlie gets upset when I say that, but he doesn't know how I feel, and I don't feel normal. So you never know. And with that, I want to thank everybody for coming in and for spending time with me tonight and listening to my story of being stalked by a 900-pound cat. It was quite an experience. I still get chill bumps when I tell the story. So thank you for listening. And I hope to see you first Thursday in September. Wow. What is the date for the first Thursday in September? That's the 5th, which will be one day after our 44th wedding anniversary, Charlie? That 44 years this year?
82.
Yeah, long time. He's been stuck with me. You want to hear that channel, LP? Okay, so before I sign off, I'll go find that. Nikki loves story time. Let me go find my other channel. Don't go anywhere, y'all. Let's see, because there's not very many people on it, so it's hard to find. Oh, come on. Oh, dear. All right, here we are. So, Nikki, you like stories. If you haven't heard them all, I've got 1, 2, 3 I've done. I just started the channel in January, and then I had the unfortunate event. She's not looking at chat. Have a safe week, Suzanne. Thursday, September 5th. Yep. There's the link. If you all haven't been there yet, you can click on that and catch up. There's 3 that I've published so far. And this coming Thursday will be the 4th entry. If you've had an experience while you're listening to my stories, if you've had an experience, jot it down. Say, oh, you know, I've lived through something like that. And then come on up on the panel when we have the panel discussion for the NDE, okay? So again, my format is a premiere at 9 o'clock, and then after the premiere airs, then we go into a live broadcast to talk about further if people want to. Oh, that's kind of weird. Hey, Shani. If you want to hear the story, you have to. You're going to have to go back and start over because we're about to sign off. Thank you, Bayou. I should call you Sugar. But thank you very much. When we saw, this week has been a week of doctor's appointments, and our GP looked at Charlie and said, because I've been kind of suicidal, and he says this is normal. Depression's normal with the heart thing. get her active, get her distracted out of it. But, you know, when the house is quiet and he's asleep, my brain kicks in and takes me to some very dark places. And even though you tell yourself it's part of your condition, it's hormonal, whatever it is, it can get rough. And I'm sorry if what I'm saying may trigger some of you, but that's life. And part of the things that keep me going are you all being able to come talk to you a couple of times a month, and my craft. So I'm getting ready for my first craft show since the heart surgery. It'll be September 7th. Yeah. You have to get outside the house when I get that way. You know, it's hard to go out in the middle of the night here where I am because the Georgia state bird, aka mosquitoes, would pick me up and carry me away. Oh, maybe. At least I can entertain you with my stories. Thank you so much, y'all being so kind. Thank you very much, Nikki. I feel the love from you. I really do. And of course, I've got an amazing husband. You all should be so lucky to have a guy like Charlie. Until you see this video from this exam room.
Hey, we were there for over an hour.
Oh, yeah, we waited to see that doctor for
Hour and a half.
hour and a half. Then he came in and he spent 5 minutes with me. I got to tell you, I got to tell you what he told us. You know me, always the journalist, right? I looked at this guy. He's the second butt doctor I saw in the day, and both were from India. And I said to him, why did you choose this specialty, right? And he looked at me and he pulled his mask down and he goes, I saw an opening and I went for it. Think about that for a minute. He's a butt doctor. He saw an opening and he went. We immediately started laughing and he had this bewildered look on his face. He didn't get what he said. So anyway, I guess colorectal surgeons' humor is not their strong point. Yeah, I'm above facts. Charlie is the best. You have a special person with such an interesting background. One day at a time, exactly. Exactly. So, yeah. You like that, Sugar? He saw an opening and went for it. This time when he was examining me, he says, would you like me to stick something up there and look around? I'm like, no, I don't. What kind of a question is that? You're the doctor. If you think I need to do it, but if I don't. And he didn't. So just because you see my opening, don't go for it. Oh my God. Anyway, with that note, you all have a wonderful week. Join me next Thursday on my other channel. And then the Thursday after that, I'll be back here. Hopefully with a guest, see who I can arrange to come up on the panel with me and we can talk about fall gardening. I still need to start my seeds. Nikki, can you believe I haven't started seed for my fall garden? I have no energy. Anyway, please take it from me. You never know how much time you have on this earth. Tell the people you love that you love them every chance you get. Be good to each other. Be kind to strangers. Take care of the earth. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for stopping by.